Nigeria's reform journey must move beyond policy statements to effective implementation, with resilient institutions at the heart of that progress. The 31st Nigerian Economic Summit will spotlight public sector reform, performance-driven leadership, and institutional accountability as critical levers for sustainable change. Key priorities include transparent digital public finance systems covering budgeting and procurement, as well as strengthening the judiciary and regulatory bodies to protect investors and contracts. The summit will also emphasize citizen engagement through feedback platforms, empowering civil society as reform partners to deepen accountability, inclusion, and trust. Daniel, I beg your pardon, Ikuenobe, member Technical Subcommittee, 31st Nigerian Economic Summit, joins us now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joan.
You know, we've seen a wave of reforms over the past 2 years, hard-hitting with expectation of reforming the economy. So several reforms have been initiated. Why and how is this any different? Because it's not the first wave of reforms. We've had the structural program years back in the 80s. So how is this any different, especially in terms of implementation?
The truth is, people deliver. And at the heart of it is how we are able to send out the right signals that allow people to make the right performance decisions and take the right actions. And basically, there are three things that inform that. You talk about leadership posture, a strong central coordinating delivery engine within government, and ensuring that there is a clear, coherent, and consistent communication. And all of this come together to then send the right kind of signal. And it is based on certain frameworks. You can use things like the structure, conduct, performance paradigm to say that when people see the kind of signal that is being sent by the institutions, then they know where to place their bets. I think that in the past, what has typically consistent delivery has been that policies are sometimes not consistent, sometimes incoherent, and sometimes unclear. So while, for example, this government is making very solid strides in the macroeconomic environment and actions that are being taken, it's important that there is a strong communications framework and ability to engage other stakeholders to build consensus. And that's why the NESG and our NEST 31 is extremely important. It brings stakeholders together, allows the government and other participants to have clarity into the actions being taken, and then you can have potential buy-in and participation by other stakeholders.
So leadership posture is important, and policy consistency. And we know that, and it's often said and put this way, Nigeria is not short of ideas, we're not short of reforms. We're also, good with the PR on some level, the leadership in that regard. But something seems to be lost when it comes to implementation. So how do you think Nigeria can perhaps strengthen the public sector institutions to ensure reforms are effectively implemented, and not just implemented, sustained?
Yeah. So in my experience and my observation, there's national interest. There are those that are appointed or elected to represent national interest, and the interest of the individuals that represent national interest. In order for us to build strong institutions, we need to ensure that the individual is diminished and the system is elevated. And what that basically means is that in many cases, gatekeepers will want to retain relevance or consolidate power centrally. But in order to build systems, you need to ensure that power is distributed and that one is able to move from individual contribution to a more systems-based approach to these things. And in order for us to build the right institutions, three things must be in place. One, identifying the right kind of people, putting them in the right places to do the right kinds of jobs, ensuring that these individuals are inspired and motivated to do the same, and then ensure that they are also incentivized to do that. So the people are central to this. The second is to clarify what the routines and the processes are to make that happen, because you build institutions through clarifying those processes and those procedures and then those routines. And lastly, that there is good archiving, documentation, and paperization. And so there has to be that focus on the system. And for that to happen, in a sense, the individuals who represent to some degree will have to die to self.
Indeed. And let's come, we know that public trust plays a key role in all of this, and we've seen that weaken relatively over the years, right? And that's as a result of transparency issues, accountability issues. They're often highlighted, but rarely achieved. So what practical steps do you think can be taken to make that a reality?
Well, first, there has to be genuine interest to be transparent. And there's a fun joke. My former organization, I remember, many years back, we did some work for a client and trying to build transparency, accountability. And the client said, after he understood the process, look, that's not the kind of organization I want. I don't want the organization to be transparent or accountable and all of that. So first is that there must be sincere interest in ensuring that things are transparent. And so that speaks to public building, having a social contract that says that we want everyone to see the quality of work that is being done, how it is being done, and being able to, we have to have a culture that is accountable, where things are not always in the black box, but a willingness to demonstrate probity and being above board. So that's a value question, and I think that there is some education that needs to happen, because generally sometimes leaders are afraid of being transparent or being open. That is not to be. But in the long run, if we understand that doing that and building trust and having a trust-based society, economies grow because it gives terms of thought. People are willing to make more investments and take necessary actions or be involved because of that level of transparency. But I think that to some degree that the incentives for doing that are not clear enough.
All right, so incentives for being transparent and accountable, I beg your pardon. There was something you said there that interests me. Leadership is afraid of transparency, of being transparent. Why is that the case?
Sometimes it's a result of, should I say, fear, and wanting to be perfect before presentation. And also the concern of public scrutiny or criticism. No one likes to be criticized, and so in some cases there's a desire for work to be exhaustive before one stands in front of the public to make presentations or say this is what they are trying to do. So again, it's ensuring that that leaders are better educated and enlightened to understand the value of that transparency. Two is to build a strong team around the leadership to ensure that they are able to build that capital that allows them to adequately represent the work that they are doing confidently. And maybe three, they need to be, in some cases, coached on the way to then represent the work that they are doing. So I think there's so much work that needs to be done in enlightening and giving the capacity for that to happen.
Yeah, and another follow-up from what you said that there's an absence of incentives to be transparent, to be accountable. When you say incentives, what would you recommend as an incentive for public officials to be transparent and accountable?
So one way is, and again, these incentives might be political, to know that by the time being transparent will strengthen the political position of leaders within the system, and can be incentive to show legacy, that by having a transparent system, the legacy will be strengthened. And maybe another incentive can be economic, to say by transparency, more resources can be mobilized. So being able to articulate the incentives can create the should I say, create create the buy-in of those who are the process gatekeepers and the system who are there within the system to be more transparent and open and accountable.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's move on from there. We know that, it's a digital age. If you're not applying digital to whatever you're doing now, you may be left behind. So speaking of public finance management, what role would you say digital plays in that for perhaps budgeting to procurement? What role can digital play to perhaps reduce corruption and inefficiency?
Yeah, technology plays a great role in all of that. One, it allows you to have digital trails so that for all the things that are being done can be seen and can be easily reported and visible to all those that have access to that system. Secondly, if you use things like open budgeting, it allows for citizens to have oversight over what institutions are doing, ensure that it strengthens audit readiness of the system, automated logs, and then strengthens internal and external audit processes, and then identifies discrepancies and all of that. So I think that if it's digitized, it then removes to a large extent the human element, which sometimes can be subjective, and then you can increase the level of objectivity, how the system is being designed, operated, and managed.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's move on to the judiciary. There has been some criticism, a lot of criticism, let me not say, some. But how critical is an independent judiciary when it comes to safeguarding investors and their confidence and, also enforcing contracts? We know they also play a role in economic growth and advancement.
It's all about rule of law and having a rule-based society, a rule-based system. That increases the level of confidence, not only within our jurisdiction, but also for foreigners who are considering an investment destination, to know that you have a robust judicial system that is independent and capable and credible, right? So having that kind of system, increases confidence, comfort, and opportunities for increased investments and enterprise development.
Mm-hmm. And sticking with some sort of regulatory bodies we know are often seen as weak or compromised in the pockets of the public players. How do you think Nigeria can strengthen its regulators, perhaps drive fair business practices and eliminate biases?
It's important because, imagine playing a football match where you don't have a referee, and anyone can decide to do what they want. It's chaos. So I think that it speaks to the point around building institutions, ensuring that the institutions are independent and they are seen as unbiased umpires and able to then guide the process forward. Without regulation or regulators, it's chaos.
Mm-hmm. And so that we're not, divorcing those involved in this whole process, the governance, the policies, the implementation. It's all for the people. But, sometimes it's said that, those at the top are far removed from the realities of the people. And that brings us to citizen engagement. Is that being emphasized, on government policies? And how can we have that feedback mechanism? How can it be designed to ensure reforms actually reflect the needs of the people and not just a select few?
Whatever is being done has to be citizen-focused, because the people we serve when in government are people. And these institutions do not operate in isolation, and so it has to be done in a way that it impacts in people's lives and transforms their lives, and that is an important element in all that is being done. And I think that there are some frameworks. There is something called the Open Governance Partnership that Nigeria has signed on to, that allows government to engage with civil society and other non-state actors, so that there is a co-creation process and the delivery process. Interestingly, that has been anchored largely by the Nigerian Economic Summit group. So those kinds of platforms allow for that level of citizen engagement. And that is why events like what we are organizing the Economic Summit is extremely important, because then you go through that level of engagement, both citizens and those in government and development, to drive progress for the entire country.
Wonderful. Finally, we know that there's a lot of momentum around, reforms. We're seeing it across several sectors, but there are also concerns that we may lose momentum, especially with the fact that we're heading into election season, right? And so how can we ensure that this initial enthusiasm is not lost? What structures can, ensure continuity, sustainability beyond just political cycles?
So the challenge is political leadership constantly running against time, trend, and tenor. And so it's important. This is where the institutions, we can't say it enough, this is where institutions are important, that every vision, whether the policies or the strategies being developed by the government, that they are institutionalized within the system. And the system is the bureaucracy. There are three levels of activity: the political class, the bureaucratic, and the technical. We want to ensure that these things stay within the institutions. And that means that institutions, and that speaks to the civil servants, that they have ownership of the process being developed and being championed by the political class, that it is not only being owned, they must feel and be seen to own the process. They must drive the entire process, and that they must ensure institutional memory is retained. And that speaks again to the people and document. And in the course of all of that, that there is investment in strengthening institutional bureaucratic capacity. And this is important, because they are the ones that own and the custodians of the institution beyond political cycles. Indeed.
Thank you very much for your time, Daniel Ikuenobe, member, Technical Subcommittee, 31st Nigerian Economic Summit Group. Thank you.